All righty. Good afternoon, Washington County Service for Lighting and Regular Budget Committee, and over to you, Chair Bowen.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to cover the service district lighting and the Washington County budget. We're going to start with roll call.
Right. Thank you, Chair Bowen. Budget Member Joe Everton.
Here.
Commissioner Fye.
Present.
Commissioner Schneider.
Here.
Budget Member Melissa Laird.
Here.
Vice Chair Treese.
Here.
Chair Bowen.
Here.
Commissioner Willie.
Here.
Budget Member Sig Ulander.
Present.
Chair Harrington.
Here.
And I'll announce we have Member Jeff Struffa online trying to get in. So you have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So let's go to Miss Angie for an overview of what we're going to do today.
Good afternoon, Chair Boland and Budget Committee members. So in front of you, there is a printout of the agenda for this afternoon. We've just gone through call to order and roll call. And the chair has welcomed you all. I want to list, there's 3 different hyperlinks within your packet, and that is to version 4, version 5, and version 7 of the question and answers that have been posted online. We will move into the Service District for Lighting number 1 budget presentation, and then we will move into budget hearing, deliberation, and approval. You will note in your packet, which was posted, there are 3 amendments that have been put forward. Thank you to Committee Member Laird. In front of you, Committee Member Laird had provided an update on her budget amendment, which she made updates yesterday afternoon. And since it was after the packet was posted, we did not update the packet. So that printout is in front of you for reference. The other proposed budget amendments are listed in the packet, as well as there is a county budget amendment presentation, which Mr. Steyer will be walking through when we get to that point in time.
Okay. Questions before we get rolling here? All right. So we're going to talk about the service district lighting first, correct? Yeah, correct. Okay. So we're going to
Mr. Roberts will.
We're going to have a guest speak to us. It's like, what are we doing now? Here you are. Yay.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Boland and members of the Budget Committee. I'm Stephen Roberts. I'm the Director of Land Use and Transportation for the county. Service District for Lighting is a part of our department portfolio. And with me today, I have Ailey Langford. She's our Senior Administrative Manager for the Department of Land Use and Transportation, and her team oversees the district operations. And so she's going to walk you through the budget presentation, and then she and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you for having me here today. Excited to present to you. Before we start, I wanted to reference page 473 of the proposed budget summary. That's where you'll find the Service District for Lighting number 1 budget details. Okay. Make sure this works. Okay. Service District for Lighting number 1, referenced as SDL, is a service district that provides street lighting services for many of the streets in Washington County outside of the cities. This map presented here gives an overview of the SDL assessment areas, as can be seen in the shaded color of orange. And it seems like it's kind of hard to see, but the light gray areas indicate cities, and there's a dark gray area that indicates the urban growth boundary. SDL areas are established in new developments, areas that are partitioned, and in existing neighborhoods with majority support from benefited property owners. When an SDL assessment area is established, the property owners share the energy and maintenance costs equally. Okay, we currently have over 48,000 tax lots, with most areas paying approximately $40 to $50 per lot annually. When an SDL is formed, a minimum and maximum cost per lot is determined. Maximum cost is currently calculated as double the minimum cost. Older assessments areas were not calculated in this manner. However, if the cost is going to exceed the approved maximum amount at any point, the property owners are notified by mail and a public hearing is required. So we currently have 1,288 active assessment areas and 12,883 streetlights. Okay, the Department of Land Use and Transportation staff provides administrative support to the district. This includes helping the developers and community members establish new assessment areas, as well as funding the maintenance and new power costs for the streetlights themselves. This is just an overview of what the resources and requirements are going into next fiscal year of 2025-26. The revenue decreased a little bit. It's just based on the investment interest, and then overall requirements increased about 4%. That's due to staff charges to administer the program and the increase in utility costs. We are anticipating utility costs to increase at approximately 10% for fiscal year 25-26. This is based on the rate information from Portland General Electric. Approximately 80% of the contingency fund is designed to cover 4.5 months of the utility charges to cover the program expenses until the district assessments are collected in the property tax in mid-November. And then the remaining portion of the contingency is used to cover any increase in operation expenses from PGE and administrative costs to manage the district. Yes. Sure.
I have a quick question on this slide. In the book on page 474, you talk about utility costs projected to increase approximately 5%. You mentioned 10%, and I'm wondering if that's enough. So that's the question I'm raising here, is that it certainly seems like it might be even more than that.
Possibly. I wanted to indicate that I did note that earlier when I was looking at this budget summary. And I had talked to one of our administrative staff that's working on this program, and that was just an oversight, but it should have been 10%.
I just wanted to make sure we corrected in the books.
Yes, thank you.
Other comments? Okay, keep going.
Great. Okay, this slide just kind of gives you more of a pie chart view of the expenditures, also referenced as requirements. The materials and services, majority of that, as you can see, it's the 64%. That's for the utility charges. That's the big bulk of it. The interfund and the transfer to other funds, that accounts for staff charges to support the district and the district's portion of countywide and road fund indirect charges. And then, as you can see, the contingency is 30% of the expenditures, and it will be just a little bit over $1.2 million. Okay. This just gives you an overview of what the revenue and expenditures along with contingency for the program has been for the last several years. As you can see, prior to fiscal year 2023-24, expenditures were outpacing revenues. And so since then, we have right-sized the budget to where revenues are higher than expenditures, and we're experiencing a pretty healthy contingency, and we're expecting the contingency to remain pretty flat moving forward. That was to kind of build up the contingency, which we currently have now. Okay, so we started a LED conversion project, I believe 5-6 years ago, and we're almost finished. There are 5 SDLs and then 7 road fund lights that remain part of this conversion project. And we are hopeful that utility costs will stabilize and we'll begin to realize the efficiencies and cost savings of LED lighting in the future. So this is just an overview of what's remaining. And I just want to point out some other services that SDL offers, and one of them is neighborhoods can request lighting to be added to their area. Back in 2023, we completed the largest to date neighborhood initiated project. Oftentimes this occurs when we get a request in. We work with our neighborhood contact. We ask PG to review the areas for possible installation and cost estimate. And then a petition is sent to all residents with the information. And then if over 50% sign in favor, then we move to get board approval through the agenda process. Other services are area lights. Sometimes it could be a better choice for someone to request lighting if they don't want to work with their neighborhood or the long process. And area lights are a property cost property owners less than $10 a year, and it's installed by PGE. And then shields are also another option that property owners can ask to be installed at the property owner's expense, and that cost is $150 per shield to cover PGE crew time to install them. And that concludes the budget presentation for SDL. Any questions?
Melissa. Here, mic on.
It's a light shield.
So that would really be just putting a piece of metal on the backside of this. So imagine the street light is like this, shining down, and so it's really a piece of metal that basically keeps the light from spilling over, let's say, into a bedroom window or someone's house. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other comments? Questions? Anything from Jeff online, Kevin?
Not seeing any hand raised at all.
Okay. All right. So if we don't have any other questions, then I guess you all are dismissed. Thank you.
So much.
Brief is good.
Yes. Have a great afternoon.
So are we going to allow time for public comment then? Yes? Okay. Oh. Oh, I get to use it.
Officially open the
Smack
public
it.
hearing.
Okay, all right. So now that we've had our last presentation, we will open our public hearing for deliberation and approval of the service district for lighting number 1.
Thank you, Chair Bullen. Would any member in the auditorium wish to provide public comment on this budget as you've heard from staff? Just raise your hand so I come forward in the room. Not seeing one in the room. We have one hand online. Dale Feek. Mr. Feek, can you hear us?
Yes, Kevin, can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Okay, I just have to get my notes. I didn't have a chance to print them. Chair Mullen,
Yes.
Board of Commissioners and Budget Committee
Okay.
people.
People.
Question about increase of cost. PG increase of cost, not 4%, but 10%. Data centers and semiconductor industry is a big driver of all that. So my question of you as county commissioners, what kind of political pressure can you put on so we don't have as many data centers? Hillsborough has really pushed data centers. They're out of land for data centers, so they came to Forest Grove. That's just a question. Contingencies build up an LED. Forest Grove did a big deal to get LED lights that helped. Problem with the LED lights, they're so darn bright. And so so brightness is good if you want elimination, but it's not good for the environment. It's called light pollution. And so my question for you is, light shields can be requested. Why aren't light shields required? Just because for the environment. I don't know if you can require that or not, but I think you ought to do it. That's just a value that I have based upon protecting the sky so people can actually see that instead of LED lights. I don't really have, some people in the organization, West County Citizen Action Network, and well, anyway, another group, Direct Action Work Group I'm in, really didn't understand what the county does. And the question, lights, they didn't understand that lights is part of it. All the road stuff, they don't understand, so I'll be able to inform them. All right, I don't look at time. I imagine I'm out of it. So please consider what I said. And again, thank you for your volunteer work, volunteers, and your paid staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fick.
All right, is there any other members that wants to specifically comment on the service district for lighting budget you've had? Just utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any other hands. Chair Bullen.
Okay, so not hearing any other comments, public hearing deliberation time is over, public comment time is over. I would entertain a motion. Oh, aren't I going to do motion first? Oh, closed. I would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year budget, if someone would like to make a motion.
Chair, I'd like to move to approve the fiscal year 2025 to 26 budget for the Service District for Lighting Number 1 as proposed in the amount of $4,149,915.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year budget in the amount described. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, are we doing roll call vote or we just raise hands? Okay, all those in favor raise their hand for a yes. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The motion, I'm sorry?
Jeff is raising his hand in favor.
Yes.
All right, budget is approved. Okay, that's done. Moving on to our Washington County Budget Committee meeting for fiscal year 25-26. Do we need to do another call, roll call? No,
No.
moving on. All right, so we're going to talk about two proposed amendments. Well, Sig withdrew his. So we're going to talk about two. So the first one I have in front of me comes from Melissa Laird. We all have it in writing.
We have a revised version in
You
writing,
have a
too?
revised version.
We have a revised version.
Yes, I just handed it to you, put it on your desk. It has a lot more words, so it's,
There are a lot of words.
so I tried to get it to you earlier so you had maybe a chance to read a little bit of it. So the purpose of this amendment is to fund the 8 FTEs in the district attorney prosecution unit to remain in the general fund. My personal belief is protecting Washington County residents from violent crime, property crime, quality of crime, et cetera, by prosecuting felony and misdemeanor crimes is an essential core service that should be fully funded from the Washington County general budget. These FTEs work includes prosecuting domestic violence crimes, supporting juvenile cases, and the highly successful specialty courts. So the plan with the public safety local option levy, my belief of that is that should be used for adjusting population growth, inflation, and also enhance our public safety resources, not to maintain what we have today. And although we are optimistic about a successful outcome, it is not guaranteed, as the library and public safety levies together are asking for over more than $1 per 1,000 assessed value, and there are currently 14 tax bills that may pass at the state level. So there's a lot of people with their hands out for the residents for this fall. Plus, another important issue as we look at taking these funds out of the general, taking these 8 FTEs out of the general fund, using the SIP as a kind of a transfer funding strategy into the PSLOA. These are real positions. These are human beings. Placing these people in this temporary funding bridge could signal to them a lack of support. It's kind of like, well, we're up next. And that could cause issues of retention in an already tough time. So, you know, if you're a person in a real job and you're in this transfer funding strategy with the hope that the new funding will come through and be able to fund you, it puts you at unease. And I think that there's a real possibility that that could cause some retention problems. So I don't think it's a good thing to do for our people. So in looking at these dollars and looking at where to get the dollars to put the FTEs back in the general fund, the Resilient Transportation Funding Option project Its goal is to find funding options to reduce reliance on the general fund for transportation capital projects. This has become important because now MST, general fund funding for the MSTIP projects is no longer guaranteed. That happened last year, and it is going to happen this year with a 13% reduction. This work is underway, and while there are no new funds in place today, the draft work plan that was presented on May 13th does show options would be available to the Board of Commissioners with the Board of Commissioners directions by the end of the year. So if you look at the plan, there is a goal, and I know it's a plan, and I know work is underway, and it's a plan, but there is a possibility that there could be some options available by the end of the year that then could be implemented in the 2026-27 budget cycle. This proposal uses SIP to fund a small portion of the MSTIP general fund, and if there are no new funding options that come out of the option planning, then there could be a request at the end of the year to restore these funds back into the general fund for the next year. So that's my proposal.
Okay. I'm just trying to take in all this. I thought it was a department of 16. So I'm wondering, how did you decide on 8?
So in the DA's office,
No?
there were 19 heads, real people heads that were not funded by the general fund. Right?
Okay.
13 of those, right, was in the Child Services Division, which has been transferred over to Child Support Division. Thank you.
Enforcement.
Child Support
Easy to
Division.
get wrong. I did it on air.
For that funding to be done through the state. The state's going to pick up that division and those resources.
Okay.
The remaining 8 were DAs in the prosecution unit of the DA, with the goal that they would be funded by one-time SIP and then transferred into the public safety local option levy resources, hoping that those get passed successfully this fall, and there's funding available for them in that fund. So I think I had all my numbers right as far as where the DA heads were.
So that's where the 8 came from? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So,
Chair, could we ask the staff to give their assessment of this? I know Melissa didn't do this in a vacuum, but before we all get into discussion on it, is that
so I'm wondering if we need a motion and a second, and then we discuss.
Sure.
Okay.
So why don't you make an official motion for your amendment to be considered?
Okay. So I move to retain the funding for District Attorney Prosecution Unit 8 FTEs to be funded in the general fund.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded that we consider the amendment to the Attorney General's general fund support. Is there discussion? So now you're asking staff to.
Yeah, I mean, I think for context-wise, I really appreciate, I've seen Melissa physically working with the county leaders on this, so I want to hear, I don't think this was done in a vacuum. I think it was done thoughtfully, and I want to know what the sort of official staff perspective is from a leadership and finance perspective.
Thank you. Comments from our staff?
So first, I want to just underscore the comments that I've made previously. This is a really challenging budget year. All of our levy conversations, we're in the position with our general fund due to the stress and strain of having to find new revenues to even purely maintain general fund services. So the staff strategy within the proposed budget of moving the DAs to the SIP funds, they are still considered ongoing positions. They are not, their titles of their positions are not changed to limited duration. Ms. Laird, to your point of the uncertainty of employees, yes, there's uncertainty in general, throughout our workforce just due to our budget. The one-time gap funding, staff have been working through the public safety local option levy, which the board has a steering committee comprised of Commissioner Fye and Commissioner Snyder, who have been working with staff on that. in the current draft local option public safety levy, we have accommodated those 8 employees. The reason I'm calling it proposed draft is because that presentation has not been brought to the full board. We're still working through the steering committee on that proposal, and that proposal will be coming to the board. As Ms. Laird and I have been talking through what these options are, I still stand by the recommendation within the proposed budget. I 100% can appreciate the sentiment of the further pressure that we're putting on local option levies, and that is real. It is real because of our low permanent rate. So appreciate that mechanically this could be done, and as county administrator and budget officer, I still stand behind the proposed budget.
Okay. Any other comments on the amendment motion? Yes.
Can the
Chair.
staff just comment, though, on whether this is workable? I mean, I know it's not your preference and you stand by what, but is there an issue with any of it mechanically?
So staff have not had the time to work through the actual mechanics of this. We're in essence moving mistipped. I believe this is mechanically doable.
I have a question about that first.
Okay.
I, as a commissioner, in supporting a project to work on potential road funding options, resilient transportation funding options, have in no way committed myself to sponsor a ballot measure to raise a single cent of transportation funding. So to suggest that this transportation funding options project is raising any money is false.
Yeah, so let me respond from a staff perspective, and this was in the correspondence to Ms. Laird. Her proposal cannot be tied, Chair Harrington, as you say, to the resilient transportation funding options, because we are just beginning that work. There's actually no option at this point in time. There's no option. The exploratory work is just beginning. So it needs to be tied to an actual funding source, which I believe what Ms. Laird is saying is the MISTEP, the current MISTEP funding. But there is no new transportation funding being considered right now.
But that isn't what the narrative talks about. That's in number 3. That's what I'm getting to. It doesn't line up. That's all.
Okay.
So,
Another question? Another comment?
nope,
Nope, that's it.
now to my comments.
Okay, we're ready.
Because I raised my hand. There are actually 30 positions in the proposed budget that have people in them that are impacted by the reduced budget. And that is because costs have increased faster than revenue growth. We've tried to be very careful in working with Ms. Angie over these last few months to ensure that our staff know this isn't about the quality of their work at all. This is all about funding challenges. And the variable that we've had very, very, very little influence over is mandates coming from the state legislature. And there are requirements that the state legislature has placed on counties writ large, where they have a track record of underfunding. And that is part of our reality. We have more requirements that this budget has to meet than we have resources to fund them. So to say that, as this proposal does, that to declare that all of public safety essential core services should be fully funded from the Washington County budget, and that options, local levy options should only be used for population growth, inflation, and to enhance public safety is not lining up with the reality that we've already been living. ESPD and the original public safety levy were put in place to navigate with the fact that the general fund property taxes in decades have not kept pace with funding needs. I'm really proud of this Board of Commissioners for the level of foundation building that we have been doing over these last 5 to 7 years, because we have had to make up for funding decisions that our predecessors were not willing to make. It's why we've had to be very creative in making up for critical facilities maintenance and catching up on those. It's why we've had to invest in an ERP replacement that had not been forecast. It's why we, to this day, have a situation of underfunding for facilities maintenance. So we continue to have liabilities. So I'm not convinced that this option for this amendment could make it through another budget year. I think we'd be right back to a similar situation. I realized that in the proposed budget as laid out on page 157, that under trends and initiatives in the 5th paragraph, that this is a very difficult choice to have to increase more of the personnel burden in the public safety levy than we already have. That's a choice none of us are we didn't start there. We didn't want to start there. But it also has the benefit of continuing in this budget year to support all of our specialty courts and programs that are also not mandated at all. They're very expensive compared to other solutions, but they so change lives, which is why this proposed budget continues those specialty courts as well. So public safety and justice is something that I know all 5 of the commission members are committed to here in Washington County, because we live here too. And it's why it's a real bitter pill for us to have to consider this bridge over to the next public safety levy. But at this juncture, in order to have a sustainable budget moving forward, it's the only solution that I see, and I don't see this amendment as a sustainable amendment. That's just my view. Thank you.
So a speech against, is there a speech for the amendment?
I have more of a
Clarification, all right. Commissioner Snyder?
Committee Member Laird, my question, especially given that I'm serving on the levy steering committee for public safety, we've sized the levy, frankly, to do what we need it to do. So my question to you would be, would you envision us decreasing the levy amount if we made this change, or what would you be? Because if our plan continues forward and we were going to fund this differently, like we do what you're suggesting here in the budget, that would mean that either we would decrease the rate or we'd do, I guess, something else with the money. I guess I'm looking for what you would, like, connecting this to the levy, how would you view that playing out?
So I don't have any thoughts on the levy and the size of it. I mean, I think increasing it so far, the little bit of polling that they did, there's, some support for that. I am concerned that with the increase of both the public safety levy and the library levy, that puts us over $1 per 1,000 K assessed. And we've been very successful in the past, but we're not the only one with our hands out. There's 14 bills in the state that are just, who knows how many of those are going to pass. And I think people will get tax weary, and I do worry about that. But I think we should go for as large of a size of a levy as we can. And I will personally, support and do what I can for that. My issue here is not the levy. My issue here is mandates don't always match core essential services needed. And when you look at the budgets with the view of mandates instead of what are those essential core services that we need and should be preserved, things that make and also things that we're successful with and make us special, like the specialty courts and the child support division that we had, they fall beside the wayside. Not because they're not essential or critical. The priorities, the first priority is mandate, and then it's after that. And that's my concern, that when we prioritize things to be in this general fund budget, the prioritization starts with if it's a mandate and goes from there. And if it's not a mandate, then, we get creative and we do some great, this is very creative, do things to try to keep them. But the priority should be, what are the essential services that we need to have supported and that need to be fundamentally core essential services that we protect.
So you, just to be clear on what you're proposing there, you would say we should try to pass whatever public safety levy rate we think we can that will pass, and not necessarily reduce its size if we don't.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chair
Thanks for the
Bolin,
question.
you have Jeff with his hand raised.
Okay. Jeff, what's your question?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Melissa, thank you for this budget amendment proposal. I'm just trying to get my head around what you're proposing in terms of the funding of the dollars. Like, can you just give a really simple explanation of remind us what is the current funding for these 8 heads that's in the budget today, and what is the change that you're proposing? Because I can't follow it from the written text, because these tables are hard to follow in the.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have the current latest amendment in front of you.
I might not.
If you look at the proposed budget and revenue accounts, it's reducing the operating transfer ins in the misstep fund 362. You reduce the operating transfers in from general fund to that number there, and you add operating transfer ins from SIP to the number nated there. So there's not the total number of operating transfer in dollars stays the same. There's no change there. It's just where that funding comes from. And the same with the DA general fund. It's reducing the operating transfer ins from the SIP to 0 and increasing the general fund subsidy to that number, which is 1.3 million. So again, there's no changing in the funding for either one of these two units. It's just where that money's coming from.
Is it coming from SIP or is it coming from misstep?
SIP, the proposal right now for the 8, I was doing some of this late.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so there was the SIP dollars that were proposed to fund the 8 FTEs this year, because they're not going to be in the general fund, and the levy hasn't been approved, right? Hasn't passed. So it's going to be in SIP for one time, because it's a one-time dollars, right? And then next year they will be funded through the hopefully successful public safety levy, and as part of as Commissioner Schneider said, it's part of the dollars that would be allocated if once we get that levy, these 8 heads would be supported in there. So it's that one. So what I was trying to do is so there's the SIP bridging transfer that was proposed to keep these 8 FTEs and get them through a gap, right? No general fund funding. The levy isn't available yet. And so that mindset I tried to honor. It's like, okay, here's a gap funding for where we have some discontinuities going from one fund, one revenue source to another one. And, there's other possibilities of using that SIP fund in a similar manner. And that's what my proposal was, to preserve the eight heads in the general fund. I hope that made sense.
So let me ask a follow-up question then, Melissa, because I'm
Yeah,
still
sure.
missing the piece in my head.
Sure.
The current proposal that's in the budget book that we got for the whole budget summary is doing a 1-year bridge of these 8 heads using SIP funds until the public safety local option levy passes. And then next year and going forward, those 8 heads would be funded from that local option levy for the next 5 years.
Yep.
Okay. You're proposing instead, not that for the 1.3 million needed to fund these 8 heads, we fund it from the general fund instead.
Yes.
The general fund doesn't have the money available to cover these 8 heads, so I'm not clear how we're able to do that. What am I missing where
Right.
the money comes from with the general fund?
So to get those dollars, I looked in the MSTIP Fund 362, which has a general transfer in from the general fund of those two numbers added together. I have to put in my head. So our current funding of the MSTIP general fund from the MSTIP fund from the general fund is $42,666,485. So what I propose is to reduce that by 1.3 million, and that would go to fund the DA. And in order to keep the MSTIP fund whole, put the SIP dollars, the 1.3 that was going to be used for the DA, over there into the MSTIP fund. So I'm just shifting that fund. Nobody's losing any money. It's just what's getting funded out of the general fund and what's getting funded with these SIP dollars. And again, with the MSTIP, the concept there was it would still be 1 year. That the whole, I guess we're not as optimistic as to how quickly the resilient transportation funding options will get in place and can actually be used, and what funding cycle. But there will be options at the end of the year. I know it's risky saying would they have funding available for the next budget cycle, right, 26, 27. That's not a guarantee. Neither is the passing of the levy. That's not a guarantee. However, that's probably got a bigger percent. It's probably a higher percentage if a betting person right now. But that was the thinking.
Okay, so Melissa, let me replay it back to you to make sure I understand this correctly. The most simple way I can understand it is instead of using SIP funds to pay for these 8 heads for 1 year, you're using SIP funds to pay for misstep.
A small part of misstep, yeah.
Okay.
1.3 million of the 42 million.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the question.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, thank you. I'll lower my hand.
Okay.
I have a question.
All right, Commissioner Treese.
First of all, thank you for your creative thinking. I just want to clarify in my mind, you're talking about changing the bridge funding. And this is for 1 year. And then with the eye to the future being the resilient transportation funding options. Is that where are you looking for past the first year, the funding of those 8 people?
The funding of those 8 people, they remain in the general fund. The SIP goes, so we put them back in the general fund. And in the next budget cycle, they'll be there, and hopefully they'll continue to stay in the general fund.
And how will they be funded in the general fund after next year? That's my question.
Right. So I think we all agree that our general fund has been continuing to decline, and we need to find more sources of revenue. And I am hopeful that not only when I learned more about the Resilient Transportation Fund, I also learned about the General Revenue Options Plan, where there is looking for, as Chair Harrington keeps saying, we need more revenue from more different places. So it's not just these 8 heads. It's, next year, unless we do some major movement forward on trying to increase our revenue, we're going to have the same problem, not only with these heads, but with other places in the general fund budget. And we will continue to look with the mindset of prioritizing mandates first which, causes, to my personal opinion, causes some very special, some very important, some very necessary core parts of our budget to sometimes not make the cut, which I don't agree with. But yeah, I mean, coming out of this budget, let's hope we start some actively finding more revenue to bring in, and also maybe finding more areas where we can relieve ourselves of some services, such as the Westlow Library. That was able to find a new home. Are there things that we're funding that, maybe can be funded elsewhere? But our budget problems are not going away.
And I thank you for that explanation. I just want to point out that given the current plan, the risk that you've identified is whether or not that levy passes. That's the risk. And the quantification of that risk is one thing. But when it passes, those 8 heads are funded for 5 years. In that, I just want to point out
Yes.
that other side.
Yes.
That it doesn't, you don't have the continued pressure on the general fund for those 8 heads for 5 years. Now, I recognize it's a temporary as well, but I'm just pointing out, I'm trying to lay out the whole picture.
Yeah, understand. Thank you.
And it's really important, like understanding that picture is really important because the pressure the following year, even next year, if we were to move forward as proposed, which I think it's very creative, but you got budget pressure next year, and that's gonna, maybe that means instead of 8, you can only have 7, and then 6 the following year or whatever. Like you got expenses increasing at a higher rate, and that's partly why the levy helps with that, because it provides sustainability for 5 years. That's how it's planned out. I just think that's an important connection to what Commissioner Treese was, I think, trying to explain around the sustainability of it and the certainty of it. Because even if we made this change for this year, it doesn't mean, like, what does that mean to next year and the year after that?
Right. And I see it as we put more fund more resources that are resources we already have, nothing new. It's just, hey, this is services and heads that we have today, but we fund them out of the public levy instead of the general fund. Just, to me, makes it harder when you put that levy in front of people and you're telling them, please give us more money to fund what we're already doing today. Because we can't.
It costs more than it did 5 years ago.
It costs more than it did 5 years ago, yes. But, there's more people paying in, but it's not enough to cover it. And to say we can't take, if we were saying it was just the inflation and the cost increases, fine. But we're saying these 8 heads, all of them, we can't fund them anymore. We're going to put them in the levy. And if we do more and more of that, where the levy becomes just an extension, filling the gaps that the general fund can't fill, our message to our residents, when we ask them to pay this extra money, we say, please pay us more money for us to do the same thing.
I think we're going to be having that conversation in every area more and more every year.
Yes.
I mean,
and
that's the landscape I think we're in.
And you're going to get burnout, I think, voter burnout. People are going to get tired of paying more for the same. And so that's just a jeopardy as we continue to look at that as a, valve out, a relief valve for the general fund that people will be willing to continue to fund. Especially with all the other taxes and things that are going to be coming down. It's going to be hard to continue to get our residents to vote for that levy if it's not giving them something exciting and some new capabilities, some new enhancement. Keeping us state of the art in public safety and justice. Anyway, thank you.
Just to finalize, I guess make my thought fully clear here. I think we, as a budget committee, as a county, as a commission, are going to have to continue to match revenues with the things they're providing services for. I see the budget as proposed as a way of doing that very clearly and also making it clear, what's at risk if we don't continue the funding and having it tied directly to public safety, which is also something that we know that resonates strongly with voters, and that helps with passing levies. And so I won't say more other than I think the strategy that's been proposed by the budget officer is merits a lot of consideration, I would say, and I don't know what we would, I mean, I'm kind of looking back to some of the staff involved in the details of the levy. I don't quite know what we would do if we had a bunch of additional money and we're not talking about scoping back the levy. Like we've got a plan here, and I think it's well thought through, but I hear your feedback, and I'm still open to either way here.
Yeah, and I don't know what your plan is because I haven't heard it. I haven't.
All right, we're ready to move on to someone else. Commissioner Fye, you want Joe first? All right, Joe, comments?
Thanks. I just want to make sure I understand here. So this is really about, I mean, we've got these local option levies. We want them to pass. We need the funding, right? What happens if, what happens to these positions in the DA's office if the levies don't pass? Is that what the concern is here? Because if would we likely, because we don't, I guess the argument you're making is these are core functions. We can't afford to lose these even if the levy doesn't pass, right? So if we go with this and the levy doesn't pass, what would happen? Would we lose those 8, or would?
Next year. This amendment that's before us is her proposal for this budget for this year.
Right.
So as much as we could stick to this budget for this year, the special levy option is not on the table. I mean, this option is for this budget for this year.
Yeah, but his question is,
We
what
don't
happens
know.
next year?
Well, that's the concern. If
Right.
that special option doesn't, then we've kept them for a year, and then we're a year from now, we're doing the same debate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything's going to be scrutinized every year going forward, right?
Right.
I understand that.
We're
But
dealing with this year and this amendment.
I think what she's trying to say is if one of these, if this option levy doesn't pass, what do we want? Is this what we want to have go, right? Is that what we're,
There's a lot of other positions in that special levy that are supported by that.
right?
So we would have bigger issues
So
than
it-
just the district attorney.
Yeah, I'm just saying, is this so core that we don't want to have it at risk of losing it if we don't have a levy not pass? Am I understanding that right?
Commissioner Fye wanted to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Are you done, Joe? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Melissa, I want to commend you. I think this was very well put together, and I think you really created a sort of a best practice on how to do a budget amendment. So to all the background support you had to come up with this proposal, it's very commendable. And when I saw this amendment, I was like thinking, wow, this is really good. And I was coming in to support you, to support this amendment. And then I had a question about what this means for MSTIP. But the thing that got me excited about your proposal, your amendment is, yes, these positions are built into the public safety levy. And if it does go away, I mean, the money doesn't go away, right? We could pivot it to somewhere else. And I can tell you some of the investment conversations that we've been having in the public safety levy, there are a lot more needs out there. We had to shave it down to some of the investments we were going to make because of the public safety levy limits and what we could ask, because people are strained financially out there, and we can't really go out there to say, give us $2 to provide. So we really had thoughtful conversations, and I know that juvenile services needs some investment. Community correction needs some investment. The sheriff could use more investment. Even Washington County, we need some coordination that needs to happen internally, that we had to really take back and say, what could we really ask the public, to the residents to say, fund this and to make sure that Washington County continues to be safe. So if your amendment passes, rest assured, the money that's built into the public safety levy to go to these positions, we can figure out where it goes. And that's a question I had for you, Tanya. I don't know if we can call Aaron Calvert to sort of tell us, we're in a crunch time. This public safety levy is due to come to the board to take an action so that we do the required process to make sure that the residents of Washington County know about the public safety levy, have enough information to support it, and really understand what investments they're making. So I don't want to disrupt that timeline if that is a barrier. But I think what you have is a really good idea, and I will support. And the other question I have, contingent on this answer, is what does this mean for MISTIP going forward? So we use SIP dollars to augment the takeaway from MSTIP. So the future years, is that gap continuing?
So thank you, and I'm going to answer your question plus more in answering your question given the conversation, because in transparency, I don't think I actually understood the full amendment correctly. So a few bits of clarification. The current budget cuts MISTIP for this fiscal year at 17%.
Right.
So the board gave me the direction and authority to pursue options for the 10, 13, and 17. So they are cut at the highest level for this year. Over the last 5 years, I'm really proud under Budget Committee, this board's leadership staff, is that we have stabilized our SIP fund. We were over-relying for our operating budget on SIP funds to carry us year over year. We have separated out what can we count on, and this is all dependent on Intel decisions, not our decisions. So the forecast, we only know, frankly, year by year. We cannot forecast this fund out and then separated one time. What this budget amendment would do for MISTIP is you are starting next year off by a reduction in the MISTIP fund.
No.
Yep, you're starting, yep. And we would be increasing, or the inverse, because where I get
13%, you mean?
This year's budget cut for MISTIP is 17%.
Which equals to 8 million, right?
So then next year, we would be looking at another reduction. Or if I'm following, because there's a couple different mechanics on how this could go. Otherwise, we would need to increase the SIP fund for ongoing operating costs versus using how we're using anything that we get above what we forecast for one-time cost. So I have concerns around the budget sustainability of this.
Melissa's just, I think it's important to connect all the dots. And the other part of what she's saying is you should go figure out how to backfill the MSTIP funding with this other sort of transportation funding. I think we all realize that would be multiple years out. That's not workable for next year. But I think it's important to connect all the dots.
So thank you. And that's where I feel uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, saying we may have a new levy or we may have a new fee in place when those are not even on the table. The only two levies that are on the table for replacement right now are the Public Safety Local Operating Levy and the WCCLS levy.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? I think, no.
I have one other clarification.
Clarification,
And
Commissioner Treese.
Thank you. And it was just, Tanya, you talked about the MISTIP reduction of 17%. In these meetings, we have talked about the actual reduction being at 13% because of the 4.25 increase. So I just wanted, because I think I heard.
Yeah, let me
two
walk
different
through the
viewpoints here.
mechanics of that. Let me walk through what we do each. So we are projecting a 4.25 assessed value increase. That gets applied to the general fund. That 4.25% increase, it gets applied to the misstep fund and it gets applied to the WCCLS fund. So cuts are taken after the AV application. If you don't take into account the AV application, it would be a 13% reduction to the misstep fund. If you do, 17%. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I'm not trying to confuse all of us. Sorry about that. So it's a difference of applying that AV based on last year's budget.
Yeah, and I was just taking the number out of the book.
Okay, Jerry, Commissioner Willie, did you have a comment?
No.
You speak in favor or against the motion?
How about I just speak?
Because I want to move along.
So do we all. So basically, we're going to fund this out of MSTIP money. And I think that's the only thing that I'm going to look at. I mean, initially I thought it was, you were taking it out of SIP. But
It is taken from SIP, but it's going to MSTIP, and then there's that gap in the future to talk about.
Well, I don't want to talk about any public safety add-ons at this point in time because you open up Pandora's box there. If we're going to talk about adding things to public safety, there's going to be a whole bunch of discussions we're going to have about where we go with that. And I think we have a big enough challenge right now, just asking the voters to approve what the proposed rate increase is for the proposed services. And to your comment, you pay more for the same or you pay the same for less. Because you're going to get less if you keep it the same, okay? Because there's not enough money there. So I'm not willing to even consider what ifs of future things. And we've always said this, the mantra in this entire thing was, we're not going to fund something with one-time money. So you're going to take 1.3 million out of misstep, you're going to do it every year, or it's one-time money. It's got to come from someplace. And so, so with that, I mean,
The original proposal on the table was take one-time funding for the 8 heads.
One time.
So, yeah, and that's the same, and we can apply that same process.
Well, the difference is that we have a strategy to fill the gap in the future as proposed. I think that's the distinction that some are making here.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments for or against the amendment?
I just want to make it clear to folks who are listening that the Resilient Transportation Funding Options Project was not proposing some new local option levy in 2026.
Okay. As of today.
Yeah, that's correct.
We've had one work session on it, and it did not include
Okay.
a local option levy
Okay.
in 2026.
Got it. All right. Are we ready for a vote? The amendment is up for consideration. All those in favor of the amendment as presented signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Are you in favor of your amendment?
Oh.
Okay, so what do we got? 1, 2, 3. Jeff? What's Jeff doing?
Didn't raise his hand.
Okay, all those opposed, same sign.
Jeff?
Any abstentions? I saw a raised hand. Okay, so what do we have?
The motion would fail 3-7.
3-7. All right, the amendment as proposed has failed. We're moving on to the next amendment. This one is, we had one that was withdrawn, so we're on to this next one. I don't know what to call it.
Salmonberry Trail.
All right, Commissioner Willie, would you like to speak to your amendment? And then, why don't you, let's see, do you want to speak to it, and then we'll have a motion?
It's the deal.
Okay.
Okay. So certainly as the commissioners know, but the budget committee may not know, Salmonberry Trail is a rail-to-trail project. It's been in in the planning stages for a very, very long time. It's over the last few years, we've finally got some motion going to it, but basically it's an 82-mile trail starting in Banks and ending up in Tillamook. That's going over across the Coast Range, of course. It's a spectacular project that will probably, I'm hoping that I'll be able to walk on a couple miles of it because it's so expensive, but it's going to also be a national project. Right now, there are two organizations that I am on. One is the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency. It's called STIA. It is basically managed by Oregon Parks, and they have agreed to, because we have to look at out into the future, who's going to oversee and manage this. And just for recollection, Banks Vernonia Trail is managed by the Oregon Parks. But they have funding issues and they cannot take on this, but they have agreed to administratively assist in the process. So none of the partners could dedicate sufficient resources on their own, and so we're pooling resources, and there's going to be 4 partners. We are one, all contributing $20,000 each for an $80,000 part-time administrative position with Oregon Parks. And so that is my first ask, and I would be asking for that to come out of the contingency fund. The second one is a $50,000 contribution to the Salmonberry Trail Foundation.
We don't have the $20,000 amendment. We only have the $50,000 amendment.
I concur with that. I don't know what that's why. I was wondering if you reduced the amount. Thank you for clarifying.
Here comes Ann to save the day.
Thank you.
Okay.
There was some confusion between staff and the commissioner about what the total package was in the request. These are for 2 separate items, but they are both coming from the same pot of funding. The first request is the one you have in front of you for $50,000. The second one is a $20,000 ask for a total of $70,000, both from the same funding package. And the commissioner would have to speak to the specifics associated with what those 2 things would fund, but the understanding of staff is that these are one-time requests, and the reason we didn't do a second amendment was because it was after the deadline, and so we recommended to the commissioner that he make it on the dais.
Okay.
So are we amending your amendment then?
Is that legit? What do I got to do?
You've already spoken to it. That's
Okay. All right. Then the second part of it is the $50,000. That's for the Salmonberry Trail Foundation. That is a nonprofit organization that we formed about 3 years ago. That specific purpose is to raise funds to build the trail. And so as we go through this, each of the counties, primarily Tillamook and Washington County in this case, contribute money annually for helping with the administrative overhead of this. And as Commissioner Treese has asked me in advance, what is our budget? Our budget this year is about $753,000. $400,000 of it comes from individual contributions because we have trail events, bringing people out there. Some of you have been on there already. And we are building a Friends of the Trail support group behind that. So the rest of it is grants and money that comes from other organizations.
I'm confused.
Okay.
The written amendment and the slide, I thought were pretty clear. There's an 82-mile rail to trail, 27 miles of which would be in Washington County.
Correct.
And what this one says is to help fund operations and planning of the trail. So I thought this request was for $50,000 towards the planning effort of this catalyst loop.
That's correct. Because there's, what we're doing is we're working with Washington County, of course, LUT. We have to have permits. We have to hire, I'm saying we now as Salmonberry Trail Foundation, hire consultants to work through the process to get our permits approved. And that's part of our $750,000 budget.
So that I understood. It was what you articulated before that about this is helping pay for our 1 year of operations and administration, blah, 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 because that verbal only description didn't match this or that. That's where I got confused.
Okay,
That's all.
well, okay.
I still do have
Maybe I
a
can-
question when we get to that, but.
Okay, well, maybe I can clarify it a little bit if I'd read my notes here. The foundation is integral to planning, development, and longevity of the trail, so I'm proposing $50,000 in one-time gain share contingency dollars to help them fund operations and planning of a 7-mile segment of the trail that basically goes, it's called the Catalyst Loop, as my notes say, and it goes from Buxton to Stubb Stewart Park. That's my ask.
Clarification?
Question
Question.
for the,
Sig.
for the commissioner. Is the entire 7-mile section within the bounds of Washington County?
Oh, yeah. We have 27 miles between here and to up in the Coast
This
Mountains.
says 127.
I see.
No. No, that's because I erased it and didn't erase it very well. It's
Okay.
27 miles.
Okay.
So this is just for the 7-mile loop.
That's correct. That's what we're focused on
I
right
see.
now.
27. Okay. Clarification for anybody.
I have a
It does say
question
127.
too.
So Joe?
Joe, go ahead.
Am I missing something? I thought we already had the Banks Vernonia Trail going from Buxton to LL Stubb Stewart Park. Is this, what am I misunderstanding?
So Banks Vernonia goes from Banks to Vernonia and runs parallel for the first few miles until we get to Stubb Stewart Park, basically, with the Salmonberry. They're not right alongside of each other, but they're two trails. And once it gets to Stubb Stewart, then it heads out over the mountains. But we have to build that first leg first to get the trail built. And also, if you've been on Banks Vernonia, on a weekend, it's very, very busy. It needs some maintenance and repair, and Oregon Parks doesn't have the money to do that either. But the Banks Vernonia is a very attractive trail. So will the Salmonberry.
Okay, thank you.
So before we continue discussion, do we want to have a motion?
Can I ask a
Another
question
question?
first?
Sure.
I'm just trying to understand to what degree, because this talks about gain share and contingency, and I'm wondering, $50,000 isn't a lot of money, but nonetheless, what does this do towards our reserves or contingencies for the proposed budget?
Mr. Steiner.
That's a very good question. We have 1.8 million that are in contingency and gain share in this budget, which is consistent with last year's budget. We also have plans for investing in critical infrastructure programs in the future, so maintaining a healthy contingency in this fund is important. $50,000 is not a lot in regard to that amount. For that reason, I would say it's feasible to do that.
But it's really 70, right? I mean, is
Yes,
it
it's
50 or
70,000.
70? It's 70.
Oh.
It's $70,000.
Writing.
So I'm sorry for the confusion on this. This was an add-on after I'd figured out I'd messed it up. It's $70,000, $20,000 to the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency, STIA, and $50,000 to the Salmonberry Trail Foundation, all coming out of gain share contingency. That leaves the contingency balance after that at $1,829,759.
Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie, for your amendment. My question to you is, your proposal is for one-time funds.
One-time funds.
And will this be a one-time request? And what I'm really asking for is there another means to provide funds on an ongoing basis to the organization that you identified?
That's this part. This
Well, I'm going to
753.
kick that over to Tanya because I don't know procedurally, if I ask for, if this was a 3-year commitment, would it change this? And so I don't know how that works.
So the Board of Commissioners right now is scheduled to get, to receive a salmonberry update on July 15th. So in my conversations with Commissioner Willie, this is truly one time before the board would have any further discussion. In my role, I've expressed my concern of the county taking on any type of continued operational responsibility, whether it comes in the form of fiscal contribution and/or staff contribution. So I am not aware of what that ask could be in the future, but I have expressed that is my concern with Salmonberry Trail, just because we don't have the staff to maintain, and we have to identify the financial resources. And that's been consistent since the Salmonberry Trail conversations have been occurring.
Yeah, and we at STIA and at STF have had that conversation. Tillamook County doesn't have that ability either. And so that's why we're working with STIA right now in Oregon Parks to find out how that would unfold. But it's also why we're building a fairly significant sized Friends of the Trail, because we're going to need them to help us with that maintenance and upkeep.
Okay. Another question. Commissioner Snyder.
Thank you. Commissioner Willie, I just want to, I'm listening with great interest over the one-time nature. Is this sustainable? I also know that there's a perspective around some of the other partners already making contributions or designating, and that you feel like we need to be a good partner. Could you speak to that a little bit as well? Because I want to I want to pay attention to that.
Well, yeah, so we, as I said, I'm sorry that says 127 miles because it isn't. It's 27 miles in Washington County. Tillamook County has the rest. And yes, they have made larger contributions annually to the Salmonberry Trail Foundation in support of their part of the trail. I feel pretty strongly that we need to be a partner at that table as well, and $50,000 would do that.
So they've already made larger contributions over a longer period of time. Is that the context here?
$100,000 a year for the last several years.
Okay, thank you.
Comments?
So what happens if this is not funded?
Salmonberry Trail Foundation will have to go find money. It's kind of a, as Commissioner Snyder said, it's a little bit of a, we need to have a financial investment in this trail, since 27 miles of it's in our county.
Part of this is just being a good partner with, I think, another county that's already contributing and maybe would benefit more, but that's part of the context. Is that's a county that's got, at least overall, just in pure financial terms, less dollars. And it's part of, I think, being a partner or a good, yeah.
Well, it's why we've invested. We made a commitment previously to invest for a period of 3 years. So it's not like this is the first time.
Joe.
Maybe it was explained earlier, but in case I missed it, why is this coming as an amendment instead of earlier as part of the budget proposal?
It's a good question, because I wasn't Johnny on the spot to do that.
So I would speak to its process. In my conversation with Commissioner Willie, he had wanted to bring this forward now. The board's having a conversation on July 15th, but the other, as was already commented, other partners have put the dollars up. So this is working toward, in full transparency. He's looking for these, for the one-time dollars, and I want to underscore the one-time dollars and the conversation that we had on the concern on taking on any type of operational responsibilities.
Thanks.
Yes.
Just a quick question to John. Does this gain share contingency fund have a policy that dictates what the minimum of the contingencies should be, and are we still within policy?
Yes, we are within the policy. Mainly contingency is there to ensure that we have enough money to do projects going forward, and also the project that we have identified, particularly the critical infrastructure projects.
All right. We don't have this amendment on the floor, so do you want to speak what your amendment is, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll talk, and then we'll vote?
I make a motion that we provide $70,000 of the gain share contingency, split into two parts, $20,000 to the Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency and $50,000 to the Salmonberry Trail Foundation. Both are one-time requests.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve an amendment for $70,000 as outlined. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Fye.
I really appreciate you, Commissioner Willie, for bringing this amendment forward. I will not be supporting this amendment. This is, for me, the way I internalize this budget cycle is there's a lot of pain in this budget. There's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of reductions. And for me, this is not the year for pet projects, so I will not be supporting this.
Not sure I'd call it a pet project, but I'll take project.
Yeah, there you go.
Any other comments? So comment against, is there a comment in favor of the amendment? Any other? Yes, oh, Sid.
I think it's a relatively minor expenditure. It's worthwhile. I know the Commissioner Willie's done a great deal of work on this, and commend you for that.
Thank you, Sid.
Okay. Comment against, comment in favor. Anybody else? Are we ready for the vote?
I will just make one comment in favor and say that I think being good partners is important, and if we want to be at the table and be able to have influence, we need to participate on some level. There's a pretty small level of participation, but it does show good faith, and for that reason, I'm going to be supporting it.
Thank you. Commissioner Treese?
My comment is in support because I do believe while we are in a very difficult budget situation, as to Commissioner Fye's comment, we still have to look to the future and the opportunity within our county and others for this type of project that brings health and wellness to our community and a perspective. I also look at this money, and this is my caveat, as we are not going to be underwriting this project. This is seed money for bringing other money in, from my perspective, through the foundation and through the work that you're doing in fundraising.
Okay. Comment opposed, comment in favor. Which one? Either one.
So I'm troubled a little bit. It's clear to me that there's planning for this 7-mile loop. I don't know what operations means for the $50,000 part. And I don't have any understanding sitting here today, given that we originally approved a 3-year commitment to STIA, and I haven't had the time to read the annual report that was provided to our inboxes months ago. So I don't know what the $20K investment does. So I see that there are two alternatives. One is we have it coming to us in July 15th, so we could do it in a supplemental budget out of the same resources. Or I could just vote to approve all of it or go with the part, take the leap of faith. I'm not in favor, I'm not suggesting breaking it up now. But I'm not inclined to go the same way next year.
I would agree with that. Like, I think Commissioner Willie, you need to be prepared for that.
Well, and that's what our July 15 work session will, I think, begin to disclose where we are, where we're going to get our funding, where we're trying to, how the trail is going to be managed once it gets built and all those things. You'll have a much better picture in July.
But it's not that this couldn't have been foreseen a few months ago, that we would be in this position either. But to me, that's water under the bridge at this point. I think from my standpoint, I'm not psyched about the 20K portion of this at all, because I don't know why we've got this ongoing IGA situation going on, but I'm willing to accept that as part of it at this juncture. But I'm not psyched about this, the way this has come about at all. I think it should have been foreseen. And I'm just trying to decide if I'm comfortable with just swallowing the pill for one time this year, or if I want to vote no and possibly have the option of it in a supplemental budget. I don't know. I need a minute. I was hoping I could get my brain to settle by thinking out loud, and I can't.
So, Commissioner, or Melissa Laird.
So, yeah, so can this funding wait until after the July presentation and come forward in a supplemental budget process? That way everybody would feel much more comfortable about where all the other funding is coming from, and if, when do they need this money right away for something tomorrow, or can they wait till July? A budget's a budget, and it can change based on things happening, right? So could it wait for a supplemental budget process?
Well, it isn't like we're living paycheck to paycheck. But I would prefer to do it in this budget because we move into the July, and then we're going to add it to the supplemental budget, and it has to come back to the Board of Commissioners anyway, and the Budget Committee isn't involved at that point in time. So I think this is the best venue to do it in, and that's what I would recommend that we do.
Okay. So just from my own understanding, in the last few years, we've put $100,000 a year for 3 years, right? We've invested $300,000 already?
No, it was $50,000 a year for 3 years, or was it $40,000? What was it?
It was 40 or 50.
Yeah, and it was for 3 years, and it was back in the early, like it was 20, 21, 22. So it's been a few years since we've done any of this.
So with this extra $70,000, that gets us not to the finish line, but we're done after this. So we've invested X amount of money. We're going to invest this much more, and then we're done.
I don't know how you can say you're done when you got a 30-year project worth $100 million, but
you got to come up with another funding source.
Well, and we do.
Okay.
We've made asks of our legislators and a whole bunch of other things. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's $750,000.
I'm impressed with that.
Yeah.
All right. So, any other comments in favor? Any other comments opposed? Are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of the amendment to add $70,000 towards this Salmonberry Trail Foundation and the intergovernmental agency, raise their hand for a yes answer. All those, okay, hands down. All those opposed, same sign. All those, anyone that wants to abstain? Okay, what's our vote?
Your vote is the motion passes 6-4.
6-4. Amendment is approved. Smack. All right, we done with that? Do we want to take a 10-minute break or we want to keep going? Not here. We just need to go through and adopt the budget, correct? Because we're done with the amendments. Oh, anybody that wants to do public comment? Yes? Or do we need to open that?
You would need to open that, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I open the time for public comment and public hearing deliberation on the larger Washington County budget. Is there anyone that wants to speak to that?
I did not
Oh,
see.
sorry.
Thank you, Chair Bullen. I did not see any members of the auditorium sign up. Would any members of the auditorium wish to provide public comment on the Maine County budget as you've heard the presentations? Raise your hands are coming forward. Not seeing it in the room. We have 3 hands in the gallery. We'll start with Mr. Dale Fee. Mr. Fee, can you hear us?
Yes, Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
I'm confused. I thought I was going to have a chance to talk about these amendments. Is this for the total budget or is it just for these amendments that you've already voted on?
This is the total budget as the amendments are now part of the total budget up for discussion.
My comment for the amendment, I was not in favor of passing it. I was in favor of waiting until July, even though Commissioner Willie is my District 4 commissioner and I want to support him. That was my point of view, especially after hearing Administrator Angie say her point of view. Well, for the whole budget. Well, in listening to most of the deliberations so far, I would say that you've deliberated very well. You've asked good questions. Explanation by the staff has been good. There's been a lot of time and energy put in this by staff and by Administrator Tanya Angie, and I think she's been open and above board with all of you and what she has to work with. And Chair Harrington has not had as much time as she has in the past because she's been dealing with clean water issues, the sewage and stormwater issue, but she still have asked very pertinent questions and comments. So I'm in favor of the budget. I don't know how I can not be in favor of the budget. We need effective government. As you know, I'm a watchdog in some ways, but I'm more of a supporter than a watchdog and creating conflict within the decision making. So I'm in support of the total budget. And I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking as chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network or any other group right now, because they haven't had a chance to listen to what I've listened to. And I think I need to have input of them to say that I'm speaking for all of the board members of WCCAN. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next.
Next, we have G. Amici.
Can you hear us?
Hello. Good afternoon. My name's Jay Mechi. I'm the organizing director at Unite Oregon, and we represent thousands of immigrants, refugees, Black and Brown communities, and working class people who live, work, and raise families in Washington County. So the proposed budget, particularly the elimination of the Office of Sustainability and deep cuts to public health services, is disappointing and alarming. These choices jeopardize the safety, health, and long-term future of our county, especially for the people most impacted by systemic inequities. The proposed 17% cuts to public health, which eliminates over 7 full-time positions, including public health nurses, is short-sighted. Programs like the Nurse Family Partnership offer critical early interventions to low-income mothers and babies. This isn't nice to have work, it's life-saving. These services reduce maternal mortality, improve early childhood outcomes, and save taxpayer money by preventing costly crises. Re-signing a few of these nurses into a separate grant-funded program like Family Connects doesn't replace the harm caused by removing trusted community-based care. Behavioral health support and communicable disease control and other frontline services are also at risk, and these are the very tools we rely on to prevent public health emergencies. For our communities, especially immigrants and refugees, access to public health programs isn't abstract, it's survival. These cuts disproportionately affect the same families who already struggle with access due to language barriers, lack of insurance, and systemic racism. When public health is underfunded, our communities are the first to feel the pain and the last to recover. And the decision to eliminate the Office of Sustainability entirely is a betrayal of this county's stated commitments to climate justice and equity. Climate impacts like extreme heat, wildfire smoke, flooding already hit BIPOC, low-income, and immigrant communities the hardest. This office has provided programs like the Wood Stove Exchange, energy-efficient upgrades for low-income residents, and tools for cities to reduce emissions and waste. And that's not fluff, that's infrastructure, and it protects lives. And how can the county meet its own climate goals without a staffed office coordinating this work? And who will help our communities prepare for future disasters? Who will ensure climate funds are distributed equitably if the team tasked with that is gone? Cutting the Office of Sustainability doesn't save us money, it increases long-term risk. And it sends the message that Washington County is backing away from its own values of racial equity, resilience, and environmental stewardship.
Okay, your 2 minutes is up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Next.
Next, we have P.Y. Reginda. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. Your 2 minutes is going to start. Are you ready?
1 second. All right.
Go.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and members of the Budget Committee. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to the well-being of the people of Washington County. I know these decisions are not easy, and I appreciate your service and leadership through such a challenging process. My name is P.Y. Runjinda, and I'm the lead community organizer with Unite Oregon Washington County Chapter. I'm here on behalf of over 7,000 members, immigrants, refugees, working class people, and communities of color who call this country home. I want to acknowledge that I've seen several proposed budget amendments that may impact the issues I will speak to today. My statement is based on the data and information available. Sorry, the computer again. Information available to us at the time of our review. We are alarmed by the proposed elimination of the Office of Sustainability and the deep cuts to public health and human services. These reductions are not abstract, that we will have real and immediate consequences for the people we serve. The cut to health and human services, including the elimination of 5 public health positions, means that vulnerable mothers and babies in the Nurse Family Partnership Program may lose life-saving support. That's not a cost savings, that's a risk to public health. And shifting funds out of behavioral health will hurt those struggling with mental health and addiction at a time when need is higher than ever. We understand that budgets are tough, but if this county says it values health, equity, and sustainability, those values must show up in the numbers. We urge you to restore funding to these essential services, not just for today's need, but for the future we all share.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
All right, and the last person we have, Chair Bolin, is Juan Almeida. Juan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Kevin.
Please go ahead.
Cool. Good afternoon, Budget Committee members. My name is Juan Pedro Moreno Almeida, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Hillsborough, and I'm here to voice my concerns about the proposed $12 million reduction in general fund transfers, particularly the $3.9 million cut to Washington County Cooperative Library Services and the $8.17 million cut to the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program. Libraries are an essential amenity in our community, especially for immigrants, refugees, Black, Indigenous, people of color residents, and the low-income communities that we serve. The proposed 17% cut to the Washington County Cooperative Library Services is not just a small budget adjustment, it's a direct blow that will directly impact the ability of thousands of residents to access vital services. For many of us, libraries are more than just a place to borrow books. They are where we learn English, build digital literacy, apply for jobs, access free internet, and find community resources. As a kid during summer breaks, I would visit the library daily because I would not be in a summer camp or a program, and the library was a safe space for me where I could find entertainment and escape from the rising summer temperatures outside. Cutting funding for our library sends a troubling message about whose needs are valued and whose are not. Similarly, the reduction of the major streets transportation improvement funding risks delaying much needed critical transportation improvements, affecting safety, access to public transit, and the ability of working families to move around the county reliably. For the last year, the TV Highway Equity Coalition has worked on promoting the TV Highway Equitable Development Strategy, and I just want to remind the members of the board that we know how important improvements to transportation are for our region, as TV Highway is one of the most dangerous corridors in the area. I urge you to reject these cuts and instead prioritize funding that serves our communities who truly need us. Investments in libraries and transportations are investments in people, and when we invest in people, we build a stronger and more resilient Washington County for everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. All right.
Chair
Anybody
Bowen,
else?
that was the last of the hands online.
All right, and no one else in the area. So we're going to close public hearing, deliberation, or public hearing. All right. Now we're ready. Chair would entertain a motion to approve our county budget as stipulated. Who would like to make the motion?
With the amendment, right? Because
With the one amendment.
Are those amounts correct with the amendment?
The amounts are
not.
correct, it's just the amendment. So yes, the amounts are correct, the dollar amounts are correct. The budget doesn't change the dollar amount, right?
Where it goes.
We've added an expenditure
Oh,
of
you're right.
$70,000.
You're right.
That's why I was concerned about it.
So add $70,000, so that would be, instead of 353, it would be,
I thought it was coming out of the contingency fund.
yes,
Yeah, but
it comes out of
still part of it.
contingency. So that, the beginning fund balance will reduce, but the expenditures will change from 353
The 423.
It's not the same, because it's been appropriated now, or that's what we're doing.
423,983. I understand. I'm just trying to get the numbers out.
How about if I make the motion?
I would love for you to do that.
if I
Okay,
may
wait,
comment.
let's see what John has to say. Okay, John?
Yeah, so from our budget manager, expert, the contingency was already budgeted, so it's already in the budget. So the number doesn't change, it's just we're approving that budget number with the amendment.
There you go, that's correct.
It's just moving, it's not,
Just moving where
it's
the
not going up
expense
or
is
down,
going.
it's just
Correct.
moving. I agree.
Yep.
It's like, well, okay.
Okay.
So we don't change the numbers. Clear on that?
No,
Okay, it moved.
no, well, that's understandable, but we're talking about taking something that was not appropriated, and now it is appropriated. So I don't understand how that answer is accurate. Are you telling me that the 2,068,353,983 has all the contingencies in it too?
Yes, the contingency line is part
In
of it.
there. Because it was on every one of those
Right.
areas, there was contingency was listed.
Right, and then if you want to expend the contingency in the year, we come back to the board to spend the contingency. So it's still part
I
of the
guess
budget.
I'm, just in matter of practice, I'm learning how we do things here, I guess, as an organization. I'm used to appropriating the spending, not appropriating or declaring the whole. I guess what you're saying is this is a movement to say, this is the whole budget, including everything we're saving, which is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So,
Okay.
I think what will change, and Steve and John will correct me, is that what that figure up there, the 2,000,000.068, that figure will be the same, but the operating revenues, because it moves from contingency over to a bucket that will let the dollars to the 70K. So that would change the operating line. One of these lines is up above non-operating. One of these lines is going to change.
Correct, by that amount,
Yeah.
we'll adjust that.
And another line will go down. One line will go up 70K and one line will go down 70K. But the bottom line
2 billion.
2.068 will remain the same.
I agree.
What's odd about this, though, is we could say that our budget is 2,068,000,000, whatever, and we're not going to spend a dime of it, and the action we take would be the same, and that's weird. I'll just state that.
Okay. Anything else before we vote?
We haven't got a motion yet.
Okay.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2025-26 budget for Washington County as proposed in the amount of $2,068,353,983 and levy the permanent tax rate of $2.2484 per thousand of assessed value, levy the public safety local option levy tax rate of 0.47 cents per thousand of assessed value, the local option levy rate of 0.22 cents per thousand of assessed value, and the general obligation bond amount of $5,790,136.
Library levy.
With your amendment.
Yeah.
Because you said as proposed, which would not include your amendment.
But it's in the $2,068,000,000.
We still need to state with the amendment.
You have to state your amendment.
Well, okay, I needed some direction. Plus the amended $70,000 approved for,
Expenditure to STIA and STF.
there you go,
Salmon-Berry Trail Intergovernmental Agreement Agency and the Salmon-Berry Trail Foundation.
So we approved the amendment. Now we're approving the motion.
The motion that includes the
with the
citation
amended
of
with the amendment. Okay.
Second that.
Second. Okay. Moved and seconded for our amended motion. Is there any discussion? We ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Oh, Melissa. Isn't this fun? You broke it.
So yeah, I'm honestly very conflicted here. I know this budget was really hard and excellent, extraordinary work on the team to put it together and provide us with great material that was by far the best to try to comprehend and understand everything in 22 days. But I still struggle with the fact that as you look at the examples of the two things that happened with the DA, we don't have to go over them again because we've talked them to death. Mandates are taking priority over things, in my mind, that make us special, that make us more successful, because they're not necessarily mandated. And I understand when your money gets really tight, you know, the mandates become more and more looming that you have to focus on that. But I would love to see us moving forward, looking at a way to look at this stuff differently, to really honestly have a list of priorities. So when we're looking at the general fund, there is a priority list, and we are going down that, and there is a cut line, and we can all make that discussion, because I never felt that we had that, and then we could understand actually where things stood. It more had to do with this mandate, that mandate. So, you know, it's an incredible amount of work by a lot of people, and I want to acknowledge and appreciate that. But I believe we're on a course that's going to continue looking at mandates only, and, you know, specialty courts are going to be on the chopping block. And, you know, we had the best in breed child support organization, and it's, you know, we handed it off to the state. So the implications of the way we're doing it it hurts my heart. So.
Okay, thank you. Other comments before we vote? Commissioner Harrington.
Yes, so I want to thank my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners, as well as all of our leadership staff and every single employee for your dedicated hard work each and every day. This budget does include a big list of reductions of positions, some of them vacant, but not all of them vacant. All of this work has been valued by our community. We've also tried to make up for lost time and ensure that we're continuing to invest in the structures of the county, so to speak, the building, the software systems. But one thing I'm really proud of with this proposed budget that we have a motion to approve is that we're also investing in our workforce in ways that we previously cut for one-time solutions. So getting back to investing in our workforce training and career development, but also providing for the market competitive PERS pickup. It is very hard for us to step back from service delivery. We on the board have tried to ensure that we've provided guidance for the hard decisions, and Ms. Angie and her team had incredible deliberations in developing reduction scenarios and reviewing all of that detail. And it is because of that very thoughtful work that we on this budget committee have the opportunity to approve a balanced budget. Because but for all of their hard work, we could not be here today for this action. Our future continues to be uncertain. We don't know what our state legislature will do. We also have no idea what's going to happen at the federal level. But nonetheless, we're going to continue to be brave together and figure out how we can develop valued services for the community that we know and love here in Washington County. And I want to thank everyone for your part in helping us get through the development and approval of a approved budget, even though it doesn't have everything that we would individually like it to have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other final comments? Commissioner Treese?
Thank you, Chair Harrington and others, for recognizing the staff and our employees that we are here representing, as well as the communities that we serve. I want to take a moment and thank each one of the Budget Committee members for their participation. We had hard discussions. We had good discussions. I learned a lot, but I honestly feel that we all came to this passionate about doing the right thing for the communities, again, that we serve. So I'm sorry that we're dealing with such a difficult time. I am grateful to deal with difficult issues with good people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Final comments? Anyone else? Joe?
This stings and it hurts and I don't like it. But I am grateful to the staff who put it together and for warning us that we wouldn't like it. You were right.
3 meetings worth.
And also to all the effort that went into the amendments. That was some good discussion, and I appreciate it. All the thought that's gone into this. I still don't like it, but we need to, it needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else before we vote? Final comments? All right. All those in favor of the amended motion as presented, correct? Amended motion as presented, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Okay, hands down. All those opposed, same sign. Got them. Anyone that wants to abstain? Okay, what's our vote?
The motion passes 8-2.
Motion passes 8-2. Thank you, everyone, for your time and thoughtfulness. We appreciate it, and I'm sure the county commissioners will have a lot to do to fix all the little details. Thank you very much for your service. We're done.